It wasn't a mission of civilization, it was an infernal column. The French conquest of Niger began with one of the most brutal and sadistic military campaigns in colonial history. The Voulet-Chenouan mission, a force that went rogue and left a trail of massacres, rapes, and burned villages in its wake. They fought with swords against machine guns, with courage against cannons. The French invasion of Niger was met with fierce, desperate resistance from local sultans and warrior queens who refused to bow to a foreign power. They came promising protection. They brought conquest. France signed treaties with the local rulers of Niger, offering friendship and trade. But these treaties were a lie, a pretext to justify a full-scale military invasion. The story of how a nation was born from terror, the story of the ultimate betrayal, and the brutal reality behind the scramble for Africa, about Niger. This is the story of their heroic but tragic last stand and the brutal birth of a colony. How are you, friends? I am Czar. Welcome to episode 10 of the French conquest of Niger. Earlier, we discussed other North African countries, origin of Niger's people, their history. The people of modern-day Niger originate from a complex tapestry of ancient empires, nomadic migrations, and powerful trading states that controlled the crossroads of the Sahara. Before French colonization in the late 19th century, life was defined by large, organized Sahelian empires, sophisticated trade networks, and distinct lifestyles adapted to the arid environment. Niger was not lived as a single nation, but within diverse and powerful ethnic groups, each with a distinct lifestyle. Concentrated in the south, the Hausa were and still are skilled farmers, cultivating millet and sorghum. They lived in highly organized, independent city-states like Katsina, Kano, and Gobir that were major centers of trade, craftwork, and Islamic scholarship. Hausa society was built around agriculture and vibrant cross-regional commerce. A semi-nomadic Berber people, the Tuareg controlled the vast northern desert regions. Their society was organized into large confederations, and they were the undisputed masters of the trans-Saharan trade, controlling the caravan routes for salt, gold, and slaves. Their lifestyle was a blend of pastoralism and commerce. Primarily nomadic pastoralists, the Fulani roamed throughout the Sahelian belt of Niger with their cattle herds. Their lifestyle was centered on seasonal migration in search of water and pasture. In the 19th century, a wave of Islamic jihads led by Fulani reformer Usman Dan Fodio created the powerful Sokoto Caliphate, which had a significant influence on the region. Dominant in the southeast around Lake Chad, the Kanuri were the core of the powerful Kanem-Bornu Empire, which lasted for over 1,000 years. They were sedentary farmers and traders, benefiting from their strategic position on the southern end of a major trans-Saharan trade route. French colonizing Niger. France colonized Niger through a series of brutal military campaigns in the late 1890s, characterized by extreme violence and technological superiority. The conquest was led by ruthless commanders who used advanced weaponry to crush all forms of local resistance. The main French force responsible for the conquest of Niger was the infamous Voulet-Chenouan mission of 1898 to 1899, led by Captains Paul Voulet and Julien Chenouan. Their small but powerful column was equipped with the most advanced weaponry of the era, which gave them a massive advantage over local forces. They possessed machine guns, such as the Hotchkiss, which could fire hundreds of rounds per minute, allowing a handful of soldiers to mow down large formations of warriors. They had light, mobile cannons that could destroy fortified walls and terrorize defending forces from a distance, bolt-action rifles. The French infantry was armed with repeating rifles like the Liebel or Gras, which were far more accurate and had a much higher rate of fire than the muskets or swords used by local armies. Based in the wealthy city of Zinder, this was the most powerful Hausa state in the region. The French defeated the forces of Sultan Amadou Kouran Daga and sacked the city in 1899. The French fought and defeated various local leaders, most famously the warrior queen Saraonia of Lugu. Though she inflicted a rare defeat on a French column in a guerrilla-style battle, she was ultimately unable to stop the French advance. The French fought numerous battles against the Tuareg, who controlled the northern trade routes. The decisive battle took place in 1902 at Tit, where a French force decisively defeated a large Tuareg army, breaking their main military power in the region. Ultimately, the combination of ruthless commanders, a strategy of terror, and superior weaponry allowed France to shatter all organized resistance and violently impose its colonial rule over the diverse peoples of Niger. War crimes of French troops in Niger, role of the Catholic Church in colonization, rape and killing as tools of supremacy and colonization. French troops committed horrific war crimes in Niger during the colonial conquest, including the systematic rape of women and the mass killing of women and children. These atrocities are most infamously documented in the actions of the Voulet-Chenouan mission. The role of the Catholic Church in these specific events was not direct, but it was part of the broader ideological justification for the colonial project. When the column entered a village, soldiers would systematically abduct and rape local women. This was a deliberate act to humiliate the local men, break the social fabric of the community, and instill terror. Beyond initial assaults, the column created a mobile contingent of female captives. Hundreds of local women were forced to march with the soldiers as sexual slaves and porters, referred to as temporary wives. They were abused by both the French officers and their African auxiliaries, tirailleurs. In villages that resisted or were simply in the column's path, everyone was a target. At the fortified town of Birnin-Koni, after a battle, Voulet ordered the massacre of its inhabitants. French officers and soldiers went through the town killing thousands of unarmed civilians, including women and children, who were shot or bayoneted. The French forced local men to work as porters, carrying supplies under brutal conditions. When these men became too exhausted to continue, they were often killed. In many documented cases, their wives and children who followed them were also murdered or left to starve in the bush. There are specific, horrifying accounts from the mission's own records of extreme cruelty. In one infamous incident, Voulet had a young boy killed simply to test the reaction of his mother, who was a captive. This level of psychopathic violence was a hallmark of the campaign. In the specific case of the conquest of Niger, the Catholic Church had no direct role. The region was overwhelmingly Muslim, and the French colonial administration was often actively hostile to Christian missionaries, fearing they would provoke religious jihads and make the territory harder to control. The Voulet-Chenouan mission was a purely military operation, and there were no missionaries accompanying them. This belief system created a context where extreme violence could be justified as a necessary evil to pacify and civilize a population deemed racially and culturally inferior. Although the church was not physically present during these war crimes, the racist and supremacist ideology it helped to foster provided the moral pretext for the French state to carry them out. Beginning of resistance, who led it, and the hardship they faced. Sarauniya Mangu, 1899. A warrior queen and priestess of the animist Asna people, she is the most celebrated early resistance hero. When the brutal Voulet-Chenouan mission marched on her capital at Lugu, she employed guerrilla tactics, poisoned wells, and engaged the French in a fierce battle. Hardship. While she inflicted a rare defeat on a French detachment, her forces were ultimately too small and ill-equipped to stop the larger French advance. Sultan Amadou Kouran Daga of Zinder, 1899. As the ruler of the powerful Damagaram Sultanate, he led a large army against the French. Hardship. His traditional cavalry and infantry were annihilated by French machine guns and artillery during the battle and subsequent sacking of the city of Zinder. Ag Mohammed Wao Teguida Kaochin, 1916 to 1917. A Tuareg nobleman, he led the Kaochin Revolt, a major uprising in the Air Mountains against French rule. He united Tuareg confederations and, inspired by a call to jihad, captured the city of Agadez. Hardship. The French responded with overwhelming force, including airplanes for reconnaissance. They brutally suppressed the revolt, hanging hundreds of rebels and supporters in public executions and massacring entire communities suspected of aiding the Tuareg, leading to a decades-long trauma for the people of the region. The political resistance and path to independence, 1940s to 1960s. After the military resistance was crushed, the fight for freedom moved into the political arena following World War II. Hamani Diori and Jibo Bakari were the two central figures of the independence movement. Diori led the more moderate Nigerian Progressive Party, PPN, which was affiliated with a Pan-African party, the RDA. Bakari led the more radical, Marxist-leaning Nigerian Democratic Union, which demanded immediate and total independence. The final step to independence was the French constitutional referendum on September 28, 1958. Nigerian leaders had to choose. Vote yes for autonomy within a French community. Vote no for immediate and complete independence. Djibo Bakari campaigned for an immediate no. However, the French administration, wanting to maintain influence, threw its support behind Hamani Diori and the YES campaign. With French backing and control of the state apparatus, the YES vote won. The French community model quickly fell apart. Recognizing the inevitable wind of change across Africa, France agreed to grant full sovereignty. On August 3, 1960, the Republic of Niger was declared fully independent, with the pro-French Hamani Diori as its first president. Djibo Bakari was forced into exile. The early resistance was crushed by overwhelming French brutality. Independence was eventually achieved when the political cost of holding on to the empire became too high for France, leading to a peaceful, negotiated transfer of power to a preferred local leader. Looting of resources and problems Niger faced after independence. The French colonial system was designed for the systematic looting of Niger's resources, which in turn created the severe problems the country faced after independence. The colonial economy was not built to develop Niger, but to extract its wealth, leaving the nation impoverished, fragile, and dependent. The French identified peanuts as a key cash crop. They used the head tax system, a tax payable only in French currency, to force Nigerian farmers to abandon their traditional subsistence crops, like millet and sorghum, and grow peanuts for French export companies. This destroyed local food security and reoriented the entire agricultural economy to serve France's needs. The French levied heavy taxes on livestock, the primary source of wealth for nomadic peoples like the Fulani and Tuareg. When people couldn't pay, their animals were confiscated. This systematic seizure of livestock crippled the pastoral economy. The most valuable resource looted from Niger was its people. Through forced labor and conscription into the tirailleurs sénégalais, France extracted the labor of hundreds of thousands of Nigerian men who were taken from their own communities to build infrastructure for French profit, or to fight and die in France's wars. France invested nothing in creating a domestic economy. At independence, Niger had almost no paved roads, a handful of doctors, and a literacy rate below 10%. The French had only built infrastructure that helped get resources out of the country. This left Niger as one of the poorest and least developed nations on Earth. The colonial focus on peanuts for export at the expense of local food crops created a structural food deficit. When severe Sahelian droughts hit in the late 1960s and 1970s, this fragile system completely collapsed, leading to catastrophic famines that killed tens of thousands. The French had ruled by pitting ethnic groups against each other and had propped up a pro-French elite. At independence, the new government under Hamani Diori had little popular legitimacy. This weak foundation led to a history of political instability, culminating in the first military coup in 1974 amidst public anger over the government's handling of the drought and corruption. Having an economy based solely on exporting one or two raw materials, peanuts and later uranium, made Niger completely dependent on France and the volatile world market. This neo-colonial relationship, reinforced by the CFA franc currency, meant that true economic sovereignty was impossible, a situation that continues to fuel resentment and instability today. France has never paid a single dollar in compensation to Niger to this day. Niger's people living in France, diplomatic ties, departure of last French troops from Niger. A relatively small but long-established community of people from Niger lives in France. According to the latest available statistics, there are approximately 10,000 to 15,000 immigrants born in Niger residing in France. The total number of people of Nigerian origin, including their French-born descendants, is estimated to be slightly higher. This community is a direct legacy of the colonial period and post-independence migration for work and education. The last French troops officially left Niger on December 22, 2023. The approximately 1,500 French soldiers had been stationed in Niger to fight jihadist insurgencies in the Sahel. After the 2023 coup, The new military government immediately revoked its military agreements with France and demanded the complete withdrawal of all French forces. The departure was completed by the December 22nd deadline, marking a significant geopolitical shift in the region and the end of a decade-long French military presence in the country. As of late 2025, official diplomatic ties between France and Niger are effectively severed. Following the military coup in Niger on July 26, 2023, relations rapidly deteriorated. Niger's new military junta demanded the departure of the French ambassador, Sylvain Ité. After a tense standoff, France eventually withdrew its ambassador in September 2023 and has since closed its embassy in Niamey. The Nigerian junta also closed its own embassy in Paris. Now that you know how France occupied Niger, you're ready for the next episode, the next country invaded by France. In my next video, we're going to cover Benin, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss it. And if you enjoyed this one, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next.